It was 4:03 a.m. The Arctic waters stretched silent, smooth as obsidian glass, reflecting only the ghostly glow of distant radar lights. Outside, fog curled over icebergs like smoke from a slow-burning fire, swallowing every ripple, every shadow. Beneath, the U.S. submarines moved like predators in a realm the human eye could barely comprehend. Engines whispered instead of roared. Waves betrayed nothing, and the water itself seemed aware, tense, alive with anticipation. The Danish sonar flickered, tiny blips, faint anomalies, but enough to send every officer into rigid attention. Something was there, unseen, moving, something calculating. The sonar room hummed quietly, each ping a heartbeat, each blip a question no one could fully answer. Eyes tracked screens, fingers poised above controls, breath shallow, measured. The commander muttered, almost under his breath, "They're here, and we can't see them yet." The words hung in the cabin like fog on ice, thick and tangible. Outside, the Arctic expanse offered no comfort, just endless gray. A canvas for suspense, a stage for unseen collisions, invisible strategies, and the silent threat of rupture. Every movement beneath the surface was a chess piece, every decision a ripple in a hidden algorithm of dominance. The submarine shifted imperceptibly, subtle deviations from predicted courses, testing edges, probing boundaries. Each sonar ping became a microsecond of tension, each unreadable blip a puzzle of threat and opportunity. What would you do with 10 seconds left to detect something that could destroy your fleet? Pause, calculate, move. A wrong step, and the Arctic could erupt into fire and ice. Strategy here is more than action. It is patience, precision, and the ability to see the unseen. The surface remained calm, but the stillness was deceptive. Icebergs drifted slowly, water lapping against hulls as if mocking the human obsession with control. Fog swirled into twisted ribbons, hiding both predator and prey. Shadows stretched and melted into gray, the Arctic itself refusing to reveal its secrets. Every officer's heartbeat seemed amplified, echoing against steel walls. The hum of machinery became a drum of suspense, counting down invisible seconds. Inside the control room, the Danish crew synchronized with this rhythm, their minds moving faster than any engine, every calculation layered with foresight. The submarines edged closer. Blips on the screen shifted, disappearing and reappearing with uncanny timing, like phantoms avoiding detection. The commander's eyes followed each movement, a silent predator of logic and intuition. A subtle tremor passed through the water, a microcurrent misread perhaps, or a deliberate decoy. The crew held, waiting, anticipating, knowing that the Arctic is less a battlefield of firepower than a theater of precision and nerve. One wrong miscalculation, and dominance could flip in seconds. Patience was the weapon. Foresight was the shield. The mind had to outpace mass, the strategy outmaneuver brute force. Outside, fog thickened. The distant silhouette of a submarine barely appeared, then vanished into gray nothingness. The water shivered with invisible motion, a shockwave without sound. The crew leaned closer, scanning, imagining vectors, calculating probability, considering the unpredictable. Currents, ice flows, the unknown reaction of an enemy that was both present and absent. Every choice was a pivot, every hesitation a risk. The Arctic tested them, demanding awareness beyond instinct, requiring calculation as sharp as steel. And then the faintest anomaly, a blip slightly off-grid, a pattern inconsistent with natural movement. All eyes followed. Fingers hovered, systems hummed, anticipation stretched to breaking. One heartbeat, 2, 3. The unseen predator continued its slow, deliberate approach, an invisible hand shaping the moment before impact. The tension was physical, almost suffocating. Every second carrying the weight of potential catastrophe. The commander's hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the gravity of precise choice, the awareness that one decision could trigger a chain reaction across these frozen waters. Time slowed further, the Arctic itself seeming to hold its breath. Blips blinked in irregular rhythm. Engines whispered, fog swirled, and outside nothing betrayed the submarine's deadly approach. Strategy outweighed force. Mind outweighed mass. Precision outweighed reaction. And in that silence, in the stretched seconds between sight and detection, the Arctic became a crucible. A moment frozen on the edge of decision, where history could pivot, disaster could erupt, and the unseen would reveal its dominance or vanish again into the gray. The narrator cuts in, voice low and reverent. Here, in the shadow beneath the waves, patience is the deadliest weapon, and foresight the sharpest shield. Every heartbeat is a calculation, every blip a possible rupture, and every second stretches like frozen metal across the Arctic abyss. The screens flickered once more. A blip moved slightly closer. Silence returned. The Arctic waited. The submarines moved. And in that frozen, invisible standoff, nothing had yet broken. But everything was ready to ignite. It was 4:07 a.m., too quiet to be real. The Arctic seemed frozen in time, the water above and below a mirror of shadow and stillness. Inside the Danish sonar room, lights pulsed suddenly, blinking with urgency, casting a cold glow on tense faces. Blips appeared, vanished, then reappeared, fleeting ghosts under ice, teasing detection, testing nerves. Every crew member leaned closer, eyes scanning, breaths held, hearts synced with the subtle hum of electronics. Something moved in the depths, a shadow within a shadow, and every movement mattered. The U.S. submarines were ghosts themselves, moving with calculated intent, using underwater currents and the natural ridges of the Arctic seabed to mask their approach. They were algorithms in steel, precise and invisible, testing boundaries without revealing themselves. The Danish commander's eyes never left the screens, tracing the blips like a predator reading the patterns of its prey. One microsecond misread, one delayed command, and the Arctic could erupt into a battlefield of fire and ice. Every second counts. One wrong move and the Arctic becomes a battlefield, the narrator whispered, low and tense, a voice threading through the humming room. The sonar blip shifted again. Tiny deviations, almost imperceptible, but enough to spark silent alarms in the minds of the crew. Calculations ran faster than the eye could follow. Velocity, direction, distance, depth. Each blip was a potential rupture in strategy, a shockwave waiting to be triggered. The crew moved in a silent rhythm, almost instinctual, hands gliding over consoles, adjusting frequencies, amplifying signals, subtracting noise. Precision was survival. Foresight was dominance. The Arctic waters above and below remained oblivious to the tension, but the frozen world could not hide the invisible chessboard being played beneath. The commander's finger traced multiple vectors across the holographic map, projecting possible approaches, calculating probabilities of detection and retaliation. Currents could carry a submarine faster than expected. Ice ridges could shield or betray. Each blip represented a choice, a decision, a micro moment that could cascade into catastrophe. Outside, fog swirled above water, hiding everything from view. But inside, every eye tracked digital ghosts, every mind racing to stay ahead of the unseen. Strategy over force, mind over mass, calculation over chaos. A sudden ping echoed, sharper this time, unmistakable. A blip had paused, then moved in a deliberate arc, a subtle test of the Danish fleet's awareness. The crew froze. Every second stretched, every heartbeat magnified. What would you do with 10 seconds left to detect an enemy moving unseen beneath a frozen sea? Pause. Consider. Strike. Hesitate. And you invite disaster. The Arctic was a crucible, and only those attuned to the rhythms of unseen currents could survive its hidden trials. Another blip. Another subtle deviation. The commander leaned forward, jaw tight, eyes narrowing. It was no random movement. It was intention. A decoy? A probe? The subtle manipulation of fear and anticipation? The U.S. subs were playing with their perception, testing patience, exploiting gaps, seeking the perfect moment to strike. And yet, in the calculated silence, the Danish crew found their own rhythm. countering with anticipation, with strategy, with the quiet assertion of dominance without raising a single gun. The sonar room felt alive, a nexus of awareness, anticipation, and control. The subtle hum of electronics became a heartbeat, echoing through every officer. Outside, fog rolled over icy waters, masking shapes, hiding threats, whispering of the unknown. And beneath that frozen surface, metal hulls slipped closer, silent and deliberate. Every second was a test, every blip a lesson in patience and foresight. The Arctic was both battleground and mentor, demanding respect for subtlety, precision, and nerve. The commander's eyes flicked across the room. Then the blips shifted together, a sudden alignment, almost imperceptible but meaningful. Fingers hovered over controls. The tension became almost physical, pressing against the chest like the cold Arctic wind outside. One decision now would tip the balance. One miscalculation could ignite the waters above with chaos. The crew leaned in, minds synchronized, hearts synchronized, waiting for the invisible domino to fall. The narrator's voice cut through the hum. In these silent depths, the mind is the deadliest weapon. Every blip is a decision, every wave a potential rupture, and the unseen may strike first if patience falters or advantage is lost. The screens flickered. Another blip vanished. Another appeared further along a calculated path. Silence returned, but heavier now, pregnant with expectation. The Arctic waited. The submarines moved. And in that frozen digital battlefield, the tension remained unresolved. A knife edge stretched across the unseen depths, ready to ignite at any moment. It was 4:10 a.m. The Arctic waters lay calm, glassy, almost deceptive in their stillness. Above, the sky was a muted gray, low clouds pressed heavy against the horizon, while below, a U.S. submarine slipped closer to the Danish fleet, invisible, precise, an unrelenting shadow beneath the ice. Engines whispered instead of roared, propellers cutting the water with surgical accuracy, leaving barely a ripple. Every movement measured, every angle deliberate. Outside, the cold waves kissed jagged icebergs, casting distorted, fractured shadows over the frozen sea, turning the Arctic into a chessboard of light, dark, and danger. Inside the Danish command room, crews hunched over digital maps, tracking invisible threats, their eyes darting across grids and blips. Each marker could be a probe, a decoy, a prelude to rupture. The commander's voice cut quietly through the tension, almost a whisper. They're testing our nerves, precision versus patience. Every word was calculated, every glance deliberate, every heartbeat matched the soft pulse of the electronics. The Arctic itself seemed to hold its breath, frozen in anticipation, waiting to see which strategy would dominate. A faint ping echoed across the sonar, delicate, almost imperceptible. Too soft to pinpoint exactly. Every officer leaned in, muscles taut, minds running faster than their fingers could track. This was no ordinary challenge. It was a test of awareness, nerve, and timing. The U.S. submarine moved like a phantom, threading along underwater ridges and currents to mask its approach, exploiting every microsecond, every distraction. One miscalculation, one hesitation, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The Arctic was no longer just a backdrop. It had become an active participant in the unfolding battle, a stage where invisibility and precision dictated life or annihilation. The crew's eyes scanned the screens in near-perfect synchronization, analyzing every anomaly, every deviation. They traced patterns across the digital map, projecting possible attack vectors, calculating probabilities, questioning every subtle ripple. What would you do if 10 seconds determined whether the Arctic remained a frozen graveyard or a theater of dominance? Pause. Calculate. Anticipate. Every decision here was a balance of mind over mass, strategy over force. The silence inside contrasted sharply with the tension outside, where waves whispered secrets and icebergs stood like silent sentinels watching the unfolding contest. Suddenly, another ping, slightly stronger this time, cut through the quiet. A blip shifted along an unusual path, subtle but intentional. Crew members exchanged looks. a silent acknowledgement of heightened stakes. The commander's hand hovered over the control console, mapping potential reactions, counter decoys, and intercepts. Every blip could be a decoy or a precursor to firepower. The Arctic, in its frozen expanse, had become a complex algorithm of shadows, currents, and calculated silence. Precision wasn't just a tool, it was survival. Patience wasn't just a virtue, it was dominance. The U.S. submarine edged closer, almost daring the Danish fleet to react. Currents masked its movement, ice ridges shielded its hull, and sonar returns became fragmented, indecipherable. It was a study in strategy, an exhibition of foresight, a test of nerves. The Danish crew anticipated, recalculated, and countered with near-perfect timing, subtle shifts of position, micro-adjustments to frequency, and silent observations. Every second stretched, every calculation magnified, every decision a possible pivot between calm control and total chaos. Outside, the Arctic waves shimmered under dim radar lights, reflecting an eerie duality, beauty and danger coexisting. The fog swirled with deliberate randomness, hiding motion, blurring perception, and heightening suspense. Shadows of icebergs stretched and contracted with the subtle undulations of the water, creating a living, breathing landscape where every movement mattered. The blips on the sonar flickered like ghosts, teasing, testing, challenging perception and patience. Then came a small anomaly. A blip moved faster, a subtle but measurable deviation. The room tensed. Crew members froze, instinctively aligning with the potential threat. The commander's gaze sharpened, tracing the trajectory, predicting next moves, weighting probabilities. Every heartbeat became a countdown, every pulse of electronics a metronome for decision. Strategy over reaction, foresight over force, mind over mass. And in the depths beneath the ice, the invisible predator pressed forward, testing limits, probing patience, poised to strike or vanish into the gray. The narrator's voice emerged, low, controlled, almost reverent. In this shadowed dance beneath the Arctic waves, dominance is earned not through firepower, but through awareness. Every blip is a question, every microsecond, a decision, and the unseen can decide first. Screens flickered, pings shifted. Silence returned, but heavier now, dense with anticipation. The Arctic waited. The submarines moved. And in that frozen, shadowed battlefield, the tension remained unresolved, the invisible hand of strategy holding both fleets on the edge, ready to ignite at the next miscalculated moment. It was 4:05 a.m. The Arctic seemed frozen in a suspended heartbeat. Waves like liquid glass, reflecting a gray sky that offered no clues. Above, fog rolled in thick, swallowing icebergs and horizon alike. Beneath, U.S. submarines glided silently, each hull a shadow, each engine a whisper, threading closer to the Danish fleet with precision that was almost inhuman. The Arctic waters held secrets, and every ripple was a potential signal, every microcurrent a hidden path to destruction. Inside the Danish sonar room, the hum of electronics pulsed like a living thing. Operators leaned forward, eyes locked on digital grids where faint anomalies blinked, appearing and vanishing like ghosts. One blip caught the edge of attention, a subtle deviation in the currents, a whisper of metal moving where nothing should exist. Breaths held, the room tightened. Every second felt stretched, heavier than the last, as if time itself had slowed to observe the unfolding tension. In this moment, one decision will decide the fate of the Arctic, the narrator whispered, low and precise, threading through the almost unbearable silence. The commander's hand hovered over the alert buttons, poised between revelation and restraint. To detect now could force confrontation, trigger escalation, ignite chaos. To wait could risk surprise, could allow the unseen predator to dictate the first strike. Eyes darted from sonar screens to radar projections, measuring angles, calculating probabilities, tracing invisible paths across currents, ice ridges, and shadowed waves. Every movement was potential domination or disaster. Strategy outweighed firepower. Foresight outweighed reaction. Mind over mass, patience over impulse. Above, fog twisted and thickened, curling over ice like smoke from a distant inferno. Shadows became deceptive, every iceberg a mask, every wave a distraction. The Arctic had become a living battlefield of perception, where visibility was a weapon and concealment a shield. Outside, the water whispered secrets, tiny waves pressing against hulls with eerie inevitability. A reminder that nature itself could amplify tension or trigger rupture with a single miscalculation. The sonar operator's eyes flicked from one blip to another, decoding patterns invisible to the casual observer. Each pulse of sound through water was a question, a challenge, a countdown toward decision. The U.S. subs had edged into striking range, silent, calculating. They used currents like algorithms, ice ridges, as shields, moving in a rhythm that tested the limits of human awareness. Every subtle deviation, every ghostly blip, forced the Danish crew to anticipate, to measure, to react with near-perfect precision. The commander's gaze hardened. One wrong move could create a cascade, shockwaves across the Arctic waters, sudden firepower, or catastrophic loss. Yet in the pause, in the frozen second before detection, dominance was being claimed without a single torpedo fired. Mind over mass, patience as a weapon, foresight as armor. A soft ping sounded, faint, almost deceptive. Eyes followed it. The blip shifted along a subtle arc, barely perceptible but unmistakable to trained eyes. It was a test, a probe, perhaps a decoy. The room held its breath. The commander considered the options. Reveal detection now, or wait for a more advantageous moment? The tension was physical, pressing against chests, amplifying every heartbeat. Outside, the fog thickened further, swallowing the horizon, erasing certainty, amplifying suspense. Shadows danced across the ice, each ripple a potential threat. Every microsecond counted. Every decision was a pivot point between restraint and catastrophe. The narrator's voice cut in again, low, reverent, almost haunting. Here, beneath frozen waters and drifting fog, perception is power. Every blip is a question. Every microsecond, a decision. And in the Arctic, the unseen will always have the advantage if patience falters. Screens flickered as blips shifted, subtle but deliberate. Silence returned, heavier now, dense with anticipation. The Arctic waited, a frozen crucible of strategy, testing nerve and calculation. The submarines moved, invisible yet present, threading closer, stretching time, magnifying tension, holding the potential to ignite fire and chaos at the precise instant a choice was made. The room remained still, eyes fixed, hands ready. The commander's mind raced across possibilities, calculating vectors, probabilities, contingencies. Outside, fog and ice continued to hide shapes, distort distances, amplify fear. The Arctic itself seemed to lean in, observing. One decision now, one action, could trigger a paradigm shift beneath these frozen waters. And in that moment, all was poised on a knife edge, ready to erupt. But no one knew exactly which side would strike first.